the Boxers Trainers Channel. And the first thing that I need to get off my chest to keep it 100 with the fan base, right, is to actually what they call in the old school is when you make a statement and the statement deems or is proved to be untrue. The old school term was "e crow," right? It means like apologizing or correcting your statements or statement, right? And there was a huge misjudgment in representation as it pertains to the fight last night between Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson, right? Now, I leaned towards Teofimo Lopez, right? And after viewing the fight last night, I have to say, with all fairness to eating that crow, that there was a lax in judgment as far as I was concerned, and dealing with the actual facts about Shakur Stevenson, right? Like Shakur Stevenson has been rambling on forever, talking about he was considered or should be considered as a great boxer, right? And although that was more than likely than not true, right? I kind of like allowed my emotions to get involved with my boxing judgment in thinking that somehow it would even out. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is, what you see is what you get, right? Me personally, I've been trained is the word, to not to assume anything. Only rely on that which you can see, that which you can touch and feel, right? Anything outside of those variables, right? You don't assume it. You assume nothing, right? But I somehow assumed that because Teofimo Lopez was this phenomenal boxer, and Teofimo Lopez had demolished the likes of this Vasily Lomachenko, Josh Taylor, and the list goes on. Teofimo Lopez should be considered as having had or has a viable background. His record, right? It should be considered as he fought good opponents throughout his career, right? So, but the fact remains the same. To assume facts not presented as evidence to support your claim or my claim in this instance is wrong. I should never have leaned or allowed myself to be in a position where I leaned towards Teofimo Lopez solely because I had a difference of opinion of Shakur Stevens based on certain things that came out of Shakur Stevens' mouth that I disliked, right? This is what this is about. This is about me putting myself in a position where I assume because certain things that came out of Shakur Stevens' mouth that was distasteful to me, that I used as a mechanism to make irrational decisions, right? I assumed that because Teofimo Lopez was a good boxer, he is, or was, or still is, right? That was enough to allow me to say that I can lean towards Teofimo Lopez winning that fight last night, right? But unbeknown to me, and the world that believed like-minded like me, right? Shakur Stevenson is an artist in boxing. He is an artist in boxing. And contrary to the fact that I may have not liked a thing that comes out of his mouth, right? To me, some of the things that came out of his mouth were negative. To me, that's the way I view some of the things that came out of Shakur's mouth as negative, right? But that doesn't change that doesn't change the dynamics of what he is capable of doing with gloves on hands, right? That doesn't change the fact that because I disliked Shakur Stevenson's verbiage, some of the things that he said I didn't like, but that doesn't change the fact that Teofimo Lopez is one of the best boxers on the planet. And you know how I feel about Devin the Dream Haney. Devin the Dream Haney and Devin the Dream Haney and Shakur Stevenson are like-minded in the way that they perform, right? And I'm not taking away from Devin, and I'm not taking away from Shakur. These cats are superb, creative-minded boxers, right? And the fact of the matter that Shakur demonstrated that last night with a masterpiece performance over Teofimo Lopez, who that loves boxing as much as I do would have believed that Shakur Stevenson was capable of totally demolishing or annihilating. That's what he did. He annihilated Teofimo Lopez. Who would have dreamed that Shakur Stevenson would be able to walk through Teofimo Lopez? Not me. Teofimo Lopez literally couldn't do anything at all. I'm talking about for 12 rounds with Shakur Stevenson. And I imagine that Shakur Stevenson wasn't whooping on Teofimo Lopez as he really was, right? I imagine that Teofimo Lopez was outpouring Shakur Stevenson. In fact, I text Bill Hannon. I said, if you sooner or later you're gonna really understand how brilliant I am when it comes to boxing, right? He texted me back and said, it ain't even close. You know what I mean? He said it ain't even close. In reference to Teofimo Lopez whooping Shakur Stevenson. Bill Haney said it ain't even close. He said Teofimo Lopez is losing this one. And I was like, I reserve the right to continue this conversation until after the fight. Little be knowing to me that what I was really seeing was a masterclass performance from Teofimo Lopez. Excuse me, from Shakur Stevenson. He couldn't do anything wrong with Teofimo Lopez. The jab. See, and that's the other thing about boxing, right? Which we don't give a lot of credence to, right? Is a boxer's ability to jab, right? For me, as a boxer, right? 4.4 point ability to work the jab. When I say point, flick the jab 3 or 4 times, right? So, that is the type of jab that a dynamic boxer like Shakur Stevenson, like Devin Dream, and let me say this before I get too far away with this in regards to the jab, right? A lot of people are now saying that Shakur Stevenson has the best jab in boxing, right? I will stand to beg the difference on that, right? Shakur Stevenson has an awesome jab, but I still stand firm and believe that Devin the Dream Haney has the best jab in the business. Now, I'm not saying that because of my relationship with his dad or none of that. I'm saying that because I'm going to say we. I'm going to say I have been in the position to monitor Devin the Dream Haney's jab, right? And it is a constant weapon that Devin Haney used to create distance. You know what I mean? Basically, in theory, the jab is the weapon of choice when you want to separate yourself from your opponent, right? Because if you're flicking that jab constantly and accurately, right, your opponent becomes disoriented because he don't know whether you're throwing a 1 punch, 2 punch, or 3 or 4 punch jab combination, right? Anything with a jab for me comes off a combination. You know what I'm saying? Flick 1, 2, 3, bam. You know what I mean? It's jab, right? The jab is the ultimate weapon, right? So we're at a stage in boxing, right, where boxing is transcending itself, right, out of fighting into boxing. Everybody who fought last night was boxing. Keyshawn Davis, Bruce Carrington, right? Them cats was boxing. You know what I mean? So what you are seeing is a changing of the guard when it comes to boxing versus fighters, right? And that's a wonderful thing because I believe that boxing is the art of the sport. Boxing, not fighting, boxing. Being able to get in a position where you sucker the sucker, right? And he ain't and can't touch you. That is boxing, right? The best of boxing who attracted me to boxing was none other than Muhammad Ali, right? The float like a butterfly, bam, sting like a bee. You know what I mean? That's what the art of boxing is about, right? Hit and not get hit. And that's what Shakur Stevenson did for 12 rounds last night. Now, they might have gave Teofimo Lopez, what was it? The fourth round, maybe, I want to say the 10th round, maybe, right? But in all actualities, the records so reflected that Teofimo Lopez didn't win a round. 19 to 12. No, excuse me, 19 to 10. And that's unusual. All three judges scored the bout exactly the same. 119 to 109, 3 times. God, hey man, how could you not be able to witness that as being a masterpiece performance? You know what I mean? Now, where did that leave Teofimo Lopez? I have a snowball chance in hell of trying to make an equation in regards to what's going to happen to Teofimo Lopez after that performance, right? Because Shakur Stevenson made him look like an idiot, like a damn fool with gloves on. No disrespect intended, but that's a fact, right? Shakur Stevenson danced and boxed all around Teofimo Lopez. Now, if you guys are a real boxing fan, you'll say, damn, he ain't lying. He telling us. I mean, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I love. I critique boxing. You know what I mean? I don't just spend my time coming out here because I ain't got anything else better to do. I could be out trying to hustle up, you know what I'm saying? Some type of a multi-million-dollar business endeavor, right? Man, I'm a thinker. You know what I'm saying? And that makes for good boxing. Good thinkers. Look at Shakur Stevenson. Obviously, Bud Crawford, Devin Haney. I don't even throw Canelo Alvarez. These cats have to think. Like Floyd Mayweather was a thinker when it comes to laying his gloves upside somebody's head. He was a thinker, right? Now, in boxing, right, you're not told to think, right? You're told to respond. You're trained to respond accordingly to whatever your opponent is doing in sparring or in the ring, in an event, boxing, right? You train. You're not trained to think per se, right? You're trained to repetitious. You're trained to repetitiously be able to respond accordingly to whatever your opponent does. That's what makes you great. If you can get to the point where you can respond accordingly to whatever a person does in the ring with you, like Shakur Stevenson did last night, you should be considered as on the road to greatness. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm talking about, man. That makes the distinction between the so-called lovers of boxers and the lovers of boxing, man. Boxing transcends the sport. Boxing is what makes boxers great. Not fighters, boxers great. And I'm after the performance last night, there was a lot of good fights on last night. A lot of good fights, right? You know what I'm saying? And most of the fights that took place, I kind of gave an explanation for a lot of the win versus a lot of the losses, right? You know what I mean? And it had a lot to do with some of those fights when it came to the European fighters, right? The white European fighters, I often say, that are better fighters than the fighters in the States. That is so true. And a few of the European boxers took belts last night. You know what I mean? Not in the Shakur versus Teofimo Lopez fight. Man, they had fights on last night, right? And I was in a position where I had 2 screens up and I was being able to monitor a lot of them. And they were excellent fights. And I'm going to say this again. We are transferring from the fighting element of boxing to the boxing element of fighting. You know what I'm saying? We're changing the narrative from fighting to boxing. Wonderful thing. Because in order to be a boxer, you got to be skillful, man. In order to draw people's attention to you, you got to be. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to pay my money to see somebody box." Man, you crazy. The art, that is the art of the sport, of being able to bow, bam, bow, and get out of the way. Whoop. Now you see me, now you don't. That's boxing, man. You know what I'm saying? I love the art of the sport of boxing. I love the artistic nature of boxing. You know what I'm saying? So look at, man. I've already apologized for the assuming, right? But and I'm gonna say this before I cut up out of here, that from here on out it's about boxing. You know what I'm saying? It's about critiquing boxing, not fighting, boxing, right? Because 9 times out of 10, when you got a fighter in there versus a boxer, a clever boxer, the boxer's gonna win. That being said, hit that subscription button, will you please? Drop a comment in the comment section and let me know how you think about the boxer versus the fighter. You hear me? And hit that thumbs up button. It helps the channel go a long way. That being said, man, I'm gone. And thanks a lot. Shout out to the chat.